See, when I read that, everything is true.
That's a bunch of shit.
That's from World War Z, the movie. News is using that. This is America. This is America.
Let me tell you about a lie you've been told your entire life. I did a whole bunch of maths this week because something just didn't sit right with me about an old nugget of wisdom. A house is the greatest investment you'll ever make. And you know what I learned? That it's a lie. I took housing, average yearly real estate appreciation, mortgage payments, insurance payments, taxes, yearly upkeep expenses, a new roof, and a cost of one remodel all into account over 40 years. And it turns out you lose money.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy while still delivering those packages to your doorstep.
The company is keeping employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy. The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
One way the media controls a narrative is by choosing who are the active and passive parties. Take the following example sentence. British people eat more saturated fat than before, causing an increase in cancer. Now, the verb here is eat. Who's doing the eating? It's British people. They are the active party. So they are responsible. They are choosing to eat more saturated fat, and in effect, they're giving themselves more cancer. Now take the following sentence. Saturated fat is creeping into the diets of British people, causing an increase in cancer. So the verb here is to creep, and it is saturated fat that is active. It is doing the creeping. It's actually moving on its own. British people are now passive, so that gives the reader the impression that British people aren't doing anything wrong. They're not doing anything at all, in fact. The saturated fat is creeping into their diets, and it's saturated fat that is causing the cancer.
These two guys are from Italy. They just turned the healthcare industry on its head. You're not going to believe this. Okay, so they solved a huge problem. They're actually able to create valves for medical equipment with only a 3D printer. Now, what does this mean? That means that these things, I know this highline job is terrible, I'm sorry. $11,000 equipment, they reproduce with a 3D printer perfectly for $1. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that is incredible. What an incredible breakthrough that's going to help save so many lives and allow so many people to get access to this for affordable prices. They're being sued by the medical industry. That shows you the world we're living in.
Yeah, it's chaos. There's no other better word for it. It's the biggest shit show you'll see is going to an urban environment and being thrust in that because it's not just, as I was saying, it's not just a street. It's internal as well. The whole thing is a big clusterfuck of mismanagement. And no one's caring about what we actually need to do. We need to end the damn drug war. This is ridiculous that we're doing this.
So that's most of what you're arresting people for?
Oh, gosh, I don't...
Is it all of it?
90%?
Jesus fucking Christ. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? 90%.
That's all that matters there is guns and drugs. Guns and drugs. Guns and drugs. Guns and drugs.
And guns probably are there so they could sell drugs and defend themselves.
And defend themselves, right?
Yeah. Fucking A, man. What a crazy, crazy situation. Just a bizarre police state set up by the fact that drugs are illegal.
Homes were not built for people. Homes were built for banks. The bank created that product to sell money. You can't just loan people money. You need a product in between. Like when people start really understanding what I'm telling them, they're like, wait, what did he just say? The bank can't lend money for just money. Like you need a reason to borrow money. Oh, you're starting a business. That's a reason, but it's really risky for the bank. What if a bunch of bankers sitting around drinking bourbon? Dude, we need to lend more money. We got to lend money out, man. That's how we make money. We get people to give us $1. We lend it out 9 times. I read that book when I was a kid, man, when I was 16 years old. So we lend it out 9 times. We need something to lend the money on. So back in the 50s, they're like, everybody should have a home. They grinned. Everybody should have a home, right? Oh man, that's pretty good. We should call it something like the American dream. We can't just call it a house, right? Everyone should have one, right? They got the politicians behind it. Yes, everyone should have one. And then what they did was basically those homes were built for banks, because who made all the money on the homes? Wasn't even the builder. Certainly wasn't the homeowner. It was always the banks.
And now another edition of things that aren't your fault, but you should probably still care about them. Spoilers, this one's about the criminal justice system too. Sorry. Let's go over 2 hypothetical scenarios. The first scenario is you are a person who makes a good bit of money and you've been accused of a crime that you didn't commit. You have enough money to hire a personal lawyer and you make bail so that you don't have to wait in jail. Your lawyer says he needs more time to prove you're innocent, so you waive your right to a speedy trial. This really doesn't matter much to you because you're not in jail waiting for your trial to happen, so you just go about your daily life and work your job and do your thing until your lawyer's ready. In the end, hopefully your lawyer wins your case. Now let's do the poor edition. You've been accused of a crime that you didn't commit, but you don't have enough money to make bail. You're also given a public defender that's severely overworked. They offer you a plea deal, but you don't take it because you're innocent, and your lawyer tells you if you really want to win this thing, you've got to give him more time. So you waive your right to a speedy trial, which really sucks because you're still stuck in jail. Meanwhile, your family suffers without your income, and you probably will lose your job because they don't have to wait around for you to get out of jail. You wait for months. In the end, you hope your public defender wins your case, but your chances are far lower, and then you might end up in prison. Maybe you should have taken that plea deal. It's not your fault, but you should care about it.
And I gave you $10,000 cash, one or both of us is probably going to go to jail. But if I'm a corporate executive and you're a senator, and I give you IPO shares in stock, and over the course of one day, that stock nets you $100,000, that's completely legal.
And former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her husband had participated in at least 8 IPOs. One of those came in 2008 from Visa, just as a troublesome piece of legislation that would have hurt credit card companies began making its way through the House. Undisturbed by a potential conflict of interest, the Pelosi's purchased 5,000 shares of Visa at the initial price of $44. 2 days later, it was trading at $64. The credit card legislation never made it to the floor. Corporate executives, members of the executive branch, and all federal judges are subject to strict conflict of interest rules, but not the people who write the laws.
Judge Doyer's son, John Doyer III, is just pleaded to 35 counts of child pornography and got off with a $1,200 fine, 6 months of probation.
So that's my idea of the patriarchy, which is a system of male dominance of society.
Yeah, but that's not my sense of the patriarchy.
So what's yours?
Well, in what sense is our society male-dominated?
The fact that the vast majority of wealth is owned by men, the vast majority of capital is owned by men. Women do more unpaid labour.
Very tiny proportion of men, and a huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men. Most people who die in wars are men. People who do worse in school are men. It's like, where's the dominance here precisely? What you're doing is you're taking a tiny substrata of hyper-successful men and using that to represent the entire structure of Western society. There's nothing about that that's vaguely appropriate.
These are just some of the ways people use real numbers to lie to you. This headline tells you one slice of bacon increases colon cancer by 20%. Turns out the study was 8 extra cases per 10,000 people. So while both of these are technically true, one's going to get a lot more clicks. Here's a way you can make close numbers look really far apart. Here's a nice chart of 3 accounts on TikTok, but maybe you're a big Charlie fan and want to tell a different story. All you have to do is not start your chart at 0, and it looks like she has way more followers than Lauren. Just don't forget to remove any unnecessary labels. And yes, this does happen. Now what if I estimate a number, but my goal is to have you believe I know exactly what it is? If I say the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, you think it's a wild guess. If I say 4,543,229,708 years old, it sounds like I nailed it. USDebtClock.org is a scary website because you can watch imaginary dollars be added to the US national debt in real time.
Here's a marketing trick that people fall for every day. Let's say there's a Coke vending machine on your campus and they sell 100 cans a day. And then Pepsi comes along and puts the Pepsi machine right next to the Coke machine. How many cans do you think each machine will sell? 70-30, 50-50. Actually, more likely than not, each machine will sell about 200 each. This is because if there's only one vending machine, the question for the consumer is, do I want soda or do I not want soda? But when there's 2 vending machines, the question becomes, do I want Coke or Pepsi? It's not the most logical thing. but having competitors side by side can actually increase the sales of both.